Picture this. Just last month, I was wandering through Rome, soaking in the ancient sights, the spring sun warming my skin, and naturally, sipping on one too many Aperol spritzes. As I stood there, staring up at some iconic statues at the Vatican museums, I had no idea that a Danish study published in the Oxford Journal of Archaeology was about to flip everything I thought I knew on its head. Today's episode, we're traveling back to ancient Greece and Rome and talking about those cold, white marble statues you've seen in museums, the very same ones that were likely once decked out, dripping in vibrant color, and wait for it, perfumed. Yeah, you heard me right. Those stone gods and goddesses weren't just meant to be seen, they were meant to be smelled. Let's get into it. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Beauty Unlocked. I'm Carissa, and today I've got a tale that's bound to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about ancient Greek and Roman statues. Now, you might be wondering, perfume statues? I know, it sounds like something out of a historical fever dream. But this isn't just some wild theory. Researchers from the University of Copenhagen recently published a study in the Oxford Journal of Archaeology that shines new light, or should I say, new scent, on the way ancient people experienced art. The team used advanced chemical analysis on two statues from the Acropolis Museum in Athens, one of them being the famous Peplos Kore, a figure once thought to be the very picture of serene, stoic beauty. But beneath her worn, weathered surface, scientists detected traces of, get this, ancient perfumes. That's right, these statues weren't just painted in bold, eye catching colors, they were also anointed with a luxurious scents. And this little detail, it completely changes the way we understand how the ancients interacted with these works of art. Statues weren't static, lifeless decorations, they were part of a fully immersive sensory experience. Let's start with what sparked this fragrant revelation. A study led by archaeologist Cecily Brons, published in the Oxford Journal of Archaeology. Brons, who's both an archaeologist and curator at the Glyptotek Museum in Copenhagen, dove deep into classical texts and ancient inscriptions, unearthing a whole new layer of meaning behind these statues. According to her, these sculptures weren't just eye candy, they were engulfed in scent. This wasn't just some decorative afterthought either. Perfume was a key part of the statue's adornment, especially for divine figures. The Roman orator Cicero himself mentioned how the statue of Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, in Segesta, Sicily, was ritually anointed with aromatic ointments. Over on the Greek island of Delos, inscriptions from the sanctuary there detailed the cost and ingredients of perfumes. Think olive oils, beeswax, natron, or sodium carbonate, and rose-scented perfumes, all used to maintain the statues of goddesses like Artemis and Hera. And it wasn't just the gods getting the royal treatment. The poet Callimachus described a statue of Queen Berenice II of Egypt as being moist with perfume. That little detail tells us these scented practices weren't limited to deities. Royalty and other esteemed figures were in on it too. Beyond the religious and symbolic meaning, perfume statues added a whole new sensory dimension to ancient life. Festivals like the Floralia in Rome, for example, would feature garlands of fragrant roses and violets strung around these statues, making the entire celebration an olfactory experience. The ancients even developed specific techniques for applying and preserving scent. One method, known as gnosis, involved mixing waxes and oils to spread over statues. Vitruvius and Pliny the Elder, the ancient DIY influencers of their time, wrote about using pontic wax and special oils not only to preserve color and luster, but to leave behind a pleasant fragrance. There was also cosmesis, where statues were dressed in fine fabrics, adorned with jewels, and yes, perfumed. Even the mighty Zeus at Olympia was no stranger to this. His statue was regularly anointed with olive oil to protect its ivory parts from the Greek humidity, according to the geographer Pausanias. While the original perfumes have long since disappeared, scientific analysis has uncovered physical evidence that backs up these historical accounts. Scientists found beeswax residues on the portrait of Queen Berenice II, suggesting it was once given an ancient perfume bath. Archaeological digs on Delos also unearthed perfume workshops, likely the very places where these sacred scents were crafted. But here's the kicker. For centuries, the myth of white marble statues reigned supreme, a myth that served more than just aesthetic tastes. It fed ideologies, especially during the Renaissance and later the Enlightenment, when white, unpainted sculptures became the poster children for purity and clarity. Archaeologist Vincenz Brickman, who spent decades restoring the lost colors of classical art, explained that Renaissance artists assumed ancient statues were always bare marble, which snowballed into this whole false ideal of colorless beauty. The plot thickens. As Brinkman's research points out, when the statue Laocoon and his sons was unearthed in Rome in 1503, traces of color were visible, but deliberately overlooked. The idea of colorful statues just didn't fit the whitewashed ideals of the time. Brinkman and his wife, Ulrika Koch Brinkman, even curated an exhibition called Gods in Color that toured from 2003 to 2023, featuring replicas of statues painted as they likely appeared in ancient times, using modern tech to detect lingering traces of pigment. The myth of white statues wasn't just a Renaissance fad. It became deeply entangled with racial ideologies of the 18th, 19th, and even 20th centuries. According to an article in The New Yorker, Johann Wickelmann, the so called father of art history, famously said, "The whiter the body is, the more beautiful it is." And, "Color contributes to beauty, but it is not beauty." Wickelmann was an Enlightenment thinker, and the science driven ideals of that era helped shape modern concepts of racism. The white appearance of ancient statues, stripped of their original colors by time, conveniently reinforced these emerging beliefs. Nikos Stampolidis, general director of the Acropolis Museum, says historically societies put their own ideologies into how they look at the world. He says because most of these statues had lost their colors by the time they were excavated, and because the people of the time were admiring the simplicity of the white color of the marble, and it fit with their ideas of superiority of white people, which harmonized with their beliefs. In the 20th century, fascist regimes appropriated the image of white ancient statues as a visual symbol of white superiority. Both Mussolini and Hitler openly admired the art and architecture of ancient Greece and Rome, and the perception of classical statues as purely white played a key role in shaping the ideology of racial hierarchy. In reality, ancient Greek statues were once adorned in a wide spectrum of colors, each shade thought to carry symbolic meaning, a concept the Acropolis Museum explored in its exhibition Archaic Colors. According to the museum, blonde hair was often reserved for depictions of gods, warriors, and athletes, symbolizing power. A gray skin tone conveyed virtue and bravery, while the pale white skin of young women proclaimed grace and glow of youth. One of the most well-known examples of a statue bearing traces of its original color is the Peplos Kore, now housed in the Acropolis Museum in Athens. The statue was unearthed during large-scale excavations of the Acropolis in the 19th century. Dating to the Archaic period around 530 BCE and carved from marble sourced from the Greek island of Paros, this figure of a young woman still displayed hints of orange pigment on her hair. While archaeologists noted and documented these traces of paint, they also quickly produced casts from the statue, creating white plaster replicas that were sent to international world fairs, a move that further cemented the public's association of ancient Greek statues with pure, unpainted whiteness. Cecily Bronze's work invites us to reconsider how ancient audiences experienced art. As she put it, admiring a statue in the ancient world was not just a visual experience, but also an olfactory one. Statues were created not to sit lifeless in silent white, but to pulse with color, scent, and symbolic power. Their perfumes weren't just for beauty, they carried deep religious significance, transforming these sculptures into living embodiments of gods and revered figures. So, the next time you walk through a museum lined with pale marble statues, remember this. In the ancient world, art didn't just demand to be seen, it asked to be smelled, touched, and felt. That's it for today's episode. I hope this peek into the perfumed past of ancient sculptures gave you a whole new appreciation for how art was experienced in the ancient world. If you loved this episode, don't forget to rate, review, and share Beauty Unlocked. Until next time, my love buckets, stay curious, stay hydrated, and stay safe. You'll hear from me again next week. Bye.
Make it clap, clap, clap. Make it clap, clap, clap. Make it clap, clap, clap. Make it clap, clap. Make it clap, clap.